Warning, this show contains adult language, so viewer and listener discretion is advised. Welcome to another edition of Up and Knitted. I'm your host, Adrian Babashoff, and if you're new here, welcome as well. And if you're wondering what the show is about, it's entirely dedicated to improving quality of life for both people and planet through liberation and independence, moving you from surviving to thriving and living life raw. Today is episode 204, and it's part 2 of how to save for emergency funds. The background noise is my vehicle. I'm on my work commute. It's the only time I get to really podcast. Speaking of saving for emergency funds, that's what I do, is I try to make do with what I have. So that is the background noise. So let's get into it. We talked a lot about why and how and all these things, but I have a couple different things that I wanted to share with you guys I didn't get to say in that episode. And the first thing I want to do is to tell you guys to separate your savings from your personal accounts. You don't want to sit there and have the headache of trying to balance everything out. Although for like my business account, I know that I want to keep a couple grand there. For those of you who have followed me, I only work 8 months to 9 months out of the year, and then I take about 3 to 4 months off. I take my summers, so I always want to know that I have my workers' comp, my payroll, and everything going. There's a certain amount that I can quantify, and I can organize to sit at that account at all times. So I have a certain amount in my business account that I know, like, hey, look, this is amount, let's just put even numbers. I know I want to have $10,000 or $20,000 of working capital when I do come back, so that I'm not missing anything as far as payroll and startups and all that kind of stuff. So I know that I keep that all in the same. I don't want to separate my business accounts. It's not very good to open up a savings and all these kind of things, in my opinion, with your business. You want to try to run everything through and simplify it as much as possible. That's another thing that the reason why we're doing all these things is to simplify life and get rid of the stress. I don't need extra paperwork and balancing and stuff like that. But when it comes to your personal emergency funds, I like to start out with like 3 months is what I did. And then I kind of took a break for a while. And then I took a break for like a week. I'm a workaholic. I don't even stop, guys. I'm like a machine. So I really wanted to get there, and I was really into it. But once I got my 3 months supply, we talked about it in the first part of this episode, it's called eating shit. And it's like sacrificing a lot of things that you love doing so that you can get debt free, or you can save your emergency funds. So that's what I had to do. But I went and treated myself to say, like, one of my favorite things was sushi. That was so many years ago, I can't even remember. But it was most likely sushi. I went and bought myself, like, some Asahi beers, and just ate to my heart's content, and just a celebration of what I did. I next moved on to 6 months. Added another 3 months on there, so I had 6 months total emergency funds. We talked about how to save money. You need to know your numbers, so go back and listen to those episodes. We talked throughout this show on how to budget and how to get all that stuff going. So I knew what my numbers are. That's the very first one if you're just tuning in. But yeah, so basically I have a savings account, and it just I can transfer that money whenever, if I ever needed to. So that's all sitting separate, and that way I don't have to think about it. And then I don't have an urgency to go and tap into it as well. Like, if it's kind of mixed in with my personal banking stuff, I'm like, oh, well, I pretend like it's not even there. And I'd like to say as well is every time I look at my net worth or what do I have going on, especially in troubling times, I'll sit back and go, okay, well, what are we working with? What do we got? Is money dwindling? And then I start to either upscale, or we just, like right now, when you get to a point like where I'm at financially, you can kind of just rest and just go, you know what? I can work. I don't have to kill myself anymore, and I could actually start enjoying myself. And buying, I still don't think you should go and start buying a bunch of shit. But I do think that you need that money. You need to have it sitting in there and keep it up so that you have a less stressful life, basically. I know I said that there, but it really is, guys, when shit starts hitting the fan, just knowing that you have that there, it really helps out. And you look and you go, you know what? We got enough to get through. And I think even better is like when you get to the point where I'm at, where there's an entire year. I've been making mention a couple of shows here and there that I save way beyond that. I've got enough to sit probably for about 2.5, 3 years, and that doesn't mean it'd be anything fancy. It'd be super, super cheap. We only leave in the car if we had to. I'm talking like down to the worst case scenario. So, yeah, separate it. And next on the list here, why savings accounts should be tended to. So when we say savings too, we're talking about your emergency funds. So when you have your numbers, you think that you have your numbers, right? Like for me, I had some things in my savings account, some money, and that was like 10 years ago, or well, actually, it's probably about like 7 years ago. I think I finally accomplished it. Well, all that money I had due to inflation now is not exactly what it was. So when I say that it needs to be tended to, it needs to be maintenance, that's the kind of things you got to look at. I would say on an average safe bet is to add about 5% of that every single year. Just keep adding. Add whatever you can. I'm just generalizing here. 5% if you can afford it. If you get to a point where you really got control of your cash flow, right? And you're not quite worried about it. It's not like we're just sitting here doing nothing, but you've got a little bit of extra money. Start feeding that into your emergency funds to help to help combat such things as inflation. Maybe somebody's not knowing what inflation is. Inflation is basically, some of you, is that the value of your dollar isn't worth what it used to be, right? So, for instance, a candy bar that back in the 90s I used to pay for was, 25 cents. I'm going to say a Snickers bar, a full-size Snickers bar. Now you look, it's like $1.25. That's what we're talking about. They raise the price on stuff, and it's very seldom that they drop it back down. So you want to make sure that you're saving, you're adding to those things, intending and planning for those things. Because if you just have your money sitting there and you just go on and you get comfortable, too comfortable, then you can end up not getting what you need. It's not really putting the power that putting to good use. So savings considerations. For instance, the truck I'm driving in right now is a 96 F350 7.3 liter diesel crew cab. It's the truck. It's my dream truck. I love it. It's like my Lamborghini. I'm a fucking dork, I'd rather have this truck than a Lambo, really. It's got everything I need. I love my truck. But I know that, I'm looking at the speed or the mileage right now, and I've got 233,000 miles on this thing. Most people would say, oh, that's a lot. Most gas engines, you would look at that point and go, well, the vehicle's actually starting to get past its lifespan. It needs to be replaced, or at least the motor needs to be replaced. This truck I bought, I always tried to share and teach people, is buy good shit. My truck is worth, I have people offering me like $20,000 to buy my truck from me, right? People who know about these things. It was built very, very well. For some reason, the 96 and the 97s, and I believe there's other years. I'm not really a mechanic. I just know I have friends that were old timers and very smart people, not an ape like me. And they told me, yeah, you want to get something like that. So this vehicle, I know that every year I should start saving for it. I don't want to just dish out what the cost is around $20,000. And again, when we start talking about inflation, $20,000 is what it costs to completely rebuild this truck from one end to the other. That's now. Actually, that was probably about 3 years ago. Who knows? The cost of everything that's going up now, nuts and bolts, everything. It's April of 2021 over here. That might have gone up a little bit. So the point is you want to take a look at things like that in emergency savings, emergency funds. Have that set for things like food, rent, cell phone, basically everyday lives. And then there's certain things that you want to save for in your emergency funds for that time when it comes, because those are easily things that you can look at, you can forget. I think those of you who don't have a very nice vehicle like mine, where you can rebuild it for the rest of your life, you're going to have to probably buy a newer used car. I would recommend you buy a newer used, because as soon as you drive it off the parking lot, it drops by, I forget what it was, something like 30%. You buy a fucking truck like mine, a brand new Ford diesel for 30 grand, you drive it off that lot, and within that minute, as soon as it touches the blacktop, it's worth like 25,000. So buy newer used is what I would recommend. But you want to have all that money, right? So that you can purchase it cash and not have to make all those interest payments and things like that. So we got a couple of things in here, and these are kind of like ghost expenses, right? So like tires on my vehicle is not that much of a cost. It is to probably a lot of people who are just barely scraping by, and those are things you can kind of foresee. But a lot of things I try to teach, and I've coined this as ghost expenses, is a lot of things you can't see. Like, for instance, we talked about if you got sick really bad, or you got in a bad car accident, and you're not able to go to work. Well, those are things that are unforeseen, or even one of your children could get sick. Anything. There's so many things that could happen. Your house could burn down. You have to relocate or whatnot. So you need your first, last, and deposit for rent. If you own a house and your house burns down, you know, maybe you need to go rent someplace for a while your house gets rebuilt. So a lot of things like that, which are ghost expenses. That's a very different cost than day-to-day life expenses. So ghost expenses go through a lot of things. I did mention this before, like a cell phone. You know, a lot of our technology, your laptops, your computer, a lot of these things are fading away. They're starting to become obsolete and not be working up to the potential that they can. In fact, your computer could get so slow, so bogged down, so old, especially when you're using things like Apple. I love the systems, but I hate the company's methods, that you can't upgrade your to new iOS settings and things like that. So your cell phone, things like that, if you want to keep up and you want to, I know it sounds probably like a lot of work, but when you've got the cash in your account, you're able to resupplement, to reinvest in these type of things relatively quickly and with the least amount of pain. So it never hurts for you to have not just emergency funds for everyday life, you know, for if you got sick and everything, but start building a separate emergency funds for these type of things. You know, motors in a vehicle, sometimes there's just something could go bad, and steel doesn't heal, right? Something warps like a piston or something and really jacks up the inner part of the motor. That whole thing's got to be honed out and everything. When you look at the cost of labor, especially here in Sunnyside, California, it's just cheaper to buy a whole new motor. But we're talking about a couple $1,000s. So there's some things there. The ghost expenses. It's the last thing I had on my show to tell you guys. So what I want to just kind of revisit here is the fact that I said it sounds like it's a lot of work, and at first it really is. I've coined this what I'm doing. I've had to build this myself because I really haven't found anybody to teach me, or I just read a lot of different books, and podcasts, and videos, and try to think for myself, design my life, which you're going to have to do as well, because everybody's lives are different. Whether you have different health issues, or you have different wants and needs and things like that. So you kind of have to take, like even this podcast, this show, and kind of look at your own life, think for yourself, and say, what do I need to save for, and what's going on? So I really recommend that you guys take this philosophy of ghost expenses and look around you at all the things that you have, right? If you're a home owner, there's things that go wrong with your plumbing. Then your plumbing goes out. You don't have a place to shit. You want to know how to make things uncomfortable? Have it to where you can't shit, right? You can't flush the toilet. Or your electric power goes off and you lose all. We talk a lot about preparedness and survival on this show too, about how to have food. I mean, that's another subject matter there on as far as financial preparedness, emergency funds, is having such things as a stockpile of food and stuff, because that'd be great to have emergency funds. But if there's a shortage in food or a disruption, a earthquake or a natural disaster or something, and you can take all the money you want and there's nothing there to buy, you ain't got nothing. So that's why I say, if your freezer gives out and you stockpiled on a bunch of meats and vegetables and foods like I've done, and all that stuff starts to thaw out, you're pretty much screwed. So there's a lot of different aspects of emergency funds and emergency, I'd say, preparedness. They all kind of go into the same realm. So I do want to say, though, is yes, once you get organized, it's not so much work. Once you've made the money and you've thought about all the things you can, of course, we can't think of everything. There could be something popped up, but you know what? If you got the money, there it is. You go fix the problem. So it's a lot less stressful. It's a little bit of work. As I said, when you get organized, it all pretty much goes on autopilot. And the feeling I want to finish off with is that I still have little stresses and stuff in my life, but I don't think I have nowhere near the stresses that I look at other people around me and some of the things that they have to go through because of ill planning, right? And I'd also like to say, if you're a business owner, that you want to make sure you have an emergency funds for your business as well. We've all experienced this whole thing with the COVID, where shit hit the fan. A lot of places had to shut down, or if your place didn't shut down, business slowed because people were afraid to go out, right? So you need to have an emergency fund and treat your business like it's a person as well, that if it gets sick or something happens to it, it's able to keep functioning. Because really, when you think about it, that's your bread and butter. That's your milking cow, right? That's your cow. If that cow got sick and died, you ain't getting no more milk. So just as much as we want to put attention into health and emergency funds for ourselves, think about your business the same way, and you won't get steered wrong. You'll actually live really good. It is a lot of work to get to that point, but then that coasting feeling is just absolutely wonderful. And that's the way life is meant to live, I believe, especially in this world where we're depending on money. So I think I've said enough, other than a lot of people say money isn't everything. I like to say that you strip a lot of that away from it, all of it from them, and see how bad life gets. Unfortunately, we are stuck in this system where money makes the world go round. It even goes down to our food, our warmth, and I think that leaks into our happiness and our well-being and our health. So make sure you consider that, taking care of yourself financially. That's the show, guys. If I gave you guys any value, please like and subscribe. Help me get this show out there. We're not really getting much momentum, it seems like. I don't really advertise, and I don't really ever ask for subscribers, so maybe that's part of it. I don't know if it's my potty mouth or what, but I could really use your help. Only if I gave you guys value. Give me a thumbs up, give me a review, share, like it, do all the things that I guess we're supposed to do to support. But guys, that's the show. It's up and in it. Also, you can direct message me down in the show notes below. It's upandinitshow@gmail.com. Let me know what you think. Give me some suggestions, what you'd like to hear. So it's Up and In It. You can find it on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and anywhere where they'll let me blabber my mouth off on these podcasts. So as I always say, go out there and have yourself a near-life experience. Don't lose your muchness. Carry on the fire. Human up. Live it, love it, own it, and bone it, my friends.